Have you ever wondered who you could have become? Not the person you are today, but the person you were capable of becoming. Imagine waking up one morning and meeting another version of yourself. Someone with the same name, the same face, the same past, but completely different. This version of you is stronger, more mindful, more disciplined, more confident. Every dream you once abandoned, they turned into reality. Every challenge that made you give up, made them stronger. Every opportunity you ignored, they embraced. Now imagine standing face to face with that person. They look at you for a moment. Then they ask one simple question. What happened to us? You try to answer. You want to explain. You think about the lack of time, the difficult circumstances, the failures, the fear, the moments when life felt too heavy. But deep inside, you already know the truth. The distance between you and the person you could have become was never created in a single day. It was created by thousands of small choices, small excuses, small doubts, small moments when comfort felt easier than growth. The truth is, no one is born as the best version of themselves, and no one accidentally becomes the worst version either. Every decision shapes who you become. Every habit writes another chapter of your life. Every day you are becoming someone. The only question is, who? Today, we're going to explore the invisible path that separates the life you are living from the life you were meant to live. And by the end of this story, you may never look at yourself the same way again. Chapter 1. The person you have become. Every life begins with possibility. As children, we rarely question what we can become. We dream without limits. We imagine adventures that have never happened. We believe we can change the world. For a while, the future feels infinite. But as the years pass, something begins to change. Not all at once. Not in a single dramatic moment. It happens quietly, almost invisibly. A disappointment here. A failure there. A dream that suddenly feels impossible. A voice that says, maybe you're not good enough. At first, you ignore it. But then another voice appears. And another. Until those voices begin to sound like your own. Without realizing it, you stop asking, what is possible? And you begin asking, what is safe? That single change transforms everything. Because the life you build is never based only on your abilities. It is built on the questions you ask yourself every day. Little by little, your choices begin to change. You stop raising your hand. You stop taking risks. You stop trying things that might lead to failure. Not because you are weak, but because your mind learns that comfort feels safer than uncertainty. Days become weeks. Weeks become years. Eventually, your routines become so familiar that you no longer notice them. You wake up. You follow the same schedule. You repeat the same habits. You think the same thoughts. And every day looks almost identical to the one before. It doesn't feel dangerous. In fact, it feels normal. But there is something most people never realize. Your life is not shaped by the biggest decisions you make once in a while. It is shaped by the smallest decisions you repeat every single day. Every morning you choose whether to grow or to stay the same. Every conversation changes the way you see yourself. Every excuse becomes part of your identity. Every action sends a message to your mind. This is who I am. The strange thing about identity is that it is always listening. If you constantly avoid challenges, your mind begins to believe, I am someone who avoids challenges. If you constantly postpone your dreams, your mind quietly accepts, I am someone who never finishes what I start. The habits come first. Then the identity follows. And once an identity is formed, your future begins to resemble your past. That is why so many people feel trapped. Not because they lack talent, not because they lack opportunity, but because they have unknowingly become someone they never intended to be. The most dangerous part is that this transformation is almost invisible. No alarm sounds. No warning appears. One day you simply wake up. and realize you have been living on autopilot. Doing what is familiar, thinking what is familiar, becoming what is familiar. But here's the good news. If thousands of small choices created the person you are today, then thousands of new choices can create the person you want to become. The story is not over. In fact, this is where it truly begins. Chapter 2. The Invisible Prison. If becoming the person you are happened little by little, why is becoming someone new so difficult? Why do so many people promise themselves that this year will be different, only to find themselves living the same life months later? The answer is simpler than most people think. You are not fighting your circumstances. You are fighting your identity. Every time you repeat a habit, every time you tell yourself the same story, every time you make the same decision, you strengthen the person you believe you are. That is why change feels so uncomfortable. Your mind was designed to protect what is familiar, even when what is familiar is making you unhappy. Think about that for a moment. People often believe they are afraid of failure, but many are actually afraid of becoming someone they have never been before. Because the unknown is uncomfortable, the familiar feels safe, even when it slowly steals your potential. This is the invisible prison. It has no walls, no locks, no guards, and yet millions of people spend their entire lives inside it. The prison is built from thoughts like, I'm not smart enough. Maybe it's too late. Someone like me could never do that. At first, they sound like simple opinions. But over time, they become beliefs. And beliefs become the lens through which you see the world. You stop looking for opportunities because you no longer believe they belong to you. You stop taking risks because your mind expects disappointment before anything has even happened. Eventually, you don't need anyone to limit you anymore. You begin doing it yourself. This is how self-sabotage is born, not from weakness, but from repetition. Every excuse repeated often enough begins to feel like the truth. Every fear left unchallenged begins to look like reality. The prison becomes stronger each day, not because someone else is building it, but because you keep adding another brick. One thought, one excuse, one avoided opportunity at a time. Then something unexpected happens. You become so used to the prison that you stop noticing the bars. Comfort replaces curiosity. Routine replaces growth. Certainty replaces possibility. Days become predictable. Dreams become smaller. Life becomes quieter, not because the world has changed, but because your vision has. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is not failing. It is slowly lowering your expectations until you no longer remember who you wanted to become. Many people believe they need more motivation. But motivation cannot free someone who still believes they belong inside the prison. Freedom begins with something much deeper. A different belief, a different identity, a different story. Because the moment you stop saying, "This is just who I am," and begin asking, "Who am I becoming?" the prison begins to crack. Not all at once, not dramatically, just enough for a little light to enter. And sometimes, a little light is all you need to find the door that was there all along. Chapter 3. Becoming someone new. The moment you recognize the prison, something remarkable happens. You realize that the door was never locked. It only looked that way, because every prison built by identity can also be dismantled by identity. Many people wait for the perfect moment to change. They wait until they feel confident, until life becomes easier, until fear disappears. But that moment rarely comes. Because confidence is not the beginning of change. It is the result of change. Think about a tree. No one plants a seed expecting shade the next morning. For weeks, nothing seems to happen. The ground looks exactly the same. Yet beneath the surface, roots are quietly growing. Transformation often works the same way. The most important changes are invisible before they become visible. One disciplined morning, one difficult decision, one promise kept to yourself. They seem insignificant. But every small action sends a message to your mind. This is who I am becoming. That message is more powerful than most people realize. Your identity is not created by what you dream about. It is created by what you repeatedly do. If you read every day, even for 10 minutes, you begin to see yourself as someone who learns. If you exercise consistently, even when no one is watching, you begin to believe you are someone who keeps promises. If you face one fear today, you become slightly different from the person you were yesterday. This is why small actions matter. Not because they immediately change your life, but because they slowly change the person who is living it. Many people underestimate consistency because they are looking for dramatic results. They want one decision that changes everything. One book, one opportunity, one perfect day, but life rarely changes that way. Mountains are climbed one step at a time. Languages are learned one conversation at a time. Trust is built one promise at a time. Character is formed one decision at a time. The same is true for the best version of yourself. It is never created in a single breakthrough. It is built through ordinary moments that most people ignore. Choosing discipline when comfort calls. Choosing honesty when excuses are easier. Choosing patience when progress feels slow. Choosing growth when fear says, stay where you are. These choices may seem small, but your mind is always watching. Every action becomes evidence. Every decision becomes proof. Little by little, the old story begins to lose its power. The voice that once whispered, I'm not the kind of person who can do this, becomes quieter. A new voice begins to emerge, not because someone inspired you, but because your own actions have changed what you believe about yourself. You stop saying, I hope I become stronger, and begin saying, I am becoming stronger. You stop waiting for motivation, because your habits now led where your emotions once failed. This is the quiet miracle of transformation. You do not wake up one day as a completely different person. You wake up after hundreds of ordinary days, and suddenly realize, you no longer think the same. You no longer react the same. You no longer fear the same things. The person you once admired has slowly become the person you are. Not through luck, not through talent, but through thousands of small choices that, together, created an entirely new identity. And that is how the best version of yourself is born. Now, imagine meeting your future self one more time. The same face, the same name, but this time, everything has changed. There is a quiet confidence in their eyes. Not because life was easy, not because they never failed, but because they refused to stop becoming. You look at them, and suddenly you understand something you never saw before. The best version of yourself was never waiting somewhere in the future. It was being built. Every single day, every difficult decision, every habit you refused to break, every excuse you chose not to believe, every time you stood up after falling. Those ordinary moments became an extraordinary life. Then your future self smiles, not with pride, but with gratitude. They know every sacrifice was worth it. Every uncomfortable step, every lonely morning, every moment you wanted to quit. Without those moments, they would never have existed. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this. You don't become a different person overnight. You become a different person one choice at a time. One habit at a time. One promise at a time. Your future is not waiting for you. It is watching you. It is being created by what you choose to do today. So when you leave this story, ask yourself one question. What decision will my future self thank me for? Because years from now, when you finally meet them again, they won't ask, what happened to us? They'll simply smile and say, thank you for not giving up. If this story meant something to you, take 1 second to leave a like. And if you want more stories that challenge the way you think, subscribe and join us on the next journey. Because the next story may change your life too.